This high school football locker room had some bad old paint on there, and they wanted a nice, fresh burgundy color with flakes in it. The paint was questionable, had some peeling areas, so we decided to rent a bunch of grinders and take it down to the bare concrete. There's only two ways to remove this paint, either by shot blasting or grinding, and accessibility to grinding equipment is much easier at local rental yards. We ground the edges with a DeWalt grinder, equipped with a diamond cup blade and a vacuum attachment. The machines will not get this close to the wall. This is a lot of work and quite time consuming. When the slab starts out bare, you can acid etch to create a profile, but when you have paint, there's no other way to do this. If the paint is adhered soundly, you can screen it out with a floor buffing machine and 80 grit discs. Here's a 2K water-based epoxy sealer. Both gallons are mixed together in a bucket and power mixed, and then it is thinned down with about 1.5 gallons of water to create a 40% solid sealer. There's a 3-hour pot life on this, and it is poured on the floor and then snow plowed and back rolled. This was about 1,800 total square feet. You can see here how we pour it across the room, snow plow it back and forth, and then come back and roll it in the other direction. Here's a better view of what snow plowing is. This is so much easier than working out of a big roller pan. This method saturates the concrete well with the sealer. The material starts off as a translucent yellowish clear and clears up with no milkiness when it's cured. It has a nice satin finish sheen to it. This is a very solid sealer for putting 100% solids epoxy over top. Here's the 2K 100% solids material, 1 gallon each of part A and B. One side is clear, the other has color pigments in there. Here's the 3/16 inch notch squeegee that's used to push the material around. Here we marked off the walls to create 200 square foot sections, so we know when we're pouring, each 2-gallon kit covers 200 square feet. We know where not to spread too far. Mixing of the 100 solids is straightforward. You dump both gallons in the bucket, scrape the excess from each gallon, and then you power mix. The most important thing you need to do when mixing 100 solids epoxy is stop every couple of minutes while you're mixing and scrape the sides and the bottom of the bucket with those large wooden paint mixing sticks. You need to jam the stick against the side of the bucket and work around the sides to make sure that you don't have any residual material that is not getting into the mix. That was 2 gallons right there being mixed, and the Jiffy mixer doesn't get completely covered, so we tilted the bucket. Once we start pouring this on a job this size, we will mix 2 kits at a time, which is 4 gallons. That is called the Hunchback Shuffle, and there's about 45 to 50 pounds in that bucket. That's 2 kits, 4 gallons total. And basically it's being poured in trails starting about 1 foot from the wall, and then the trails are about 3 to 4 feet apart. That was a custom burgundy color we made for that job. You empty the entire bucket on the floor. You do not work from a pail with 100% solids epoxy, or the material will start to get hot and the pot life will get extremely short. The notch squeegee is used to push the material in the direction that you poured the ribbons until you've got all the blank space between the ribbons covered, and you've pushed this thing to the recommended square footage for the amount that was mixed. In this case, we're talking about 400 square feet with 4 gallons. Squeegeeing epoxy is addicting. On a 1,500 square foot job, the notches on this EDPM rubber squeegee blade will start to wear down, and you will wind up getting lower film thickness if you continue with the same squeegee for the entire job. So we recommend changing squeegees. Those are the spiked shoes. When you first pour, you work with a 4-inch brush taped to the end of a broom handle to cut in against the walls. Here you can see the back rolling. We're rolling in the opposite direction that the squeegee traveled, and what you're seeing there is about 400 square feet from one wall to the other. And right there is being used a 12-foot extension pole, which comes in very handy for a job like this. I'm working there with no spikes on, so the pole enables me to reach into the area without having to step in the epoxy. Someone needs to be mixing another kit at this point of this application. Someone behind us has to be mixing another kit because we want to start pouring again as soon as we finish rolling out this area. If you have doorways to deal with, you want to consider putting a tape line across. That tape will get pulled as soon as you can come back the next morning and walk on this surface. If you get good with the squeegee, you can squeegee up against the wall without rolling or brushing. This is a different job, just showing squeegeeing of some gray epoxy. These are actually our offices. This was about 900 square feet. This floor was ground and sealed the same as the burgundy job. That was the flakes that are going to be broadcast into this wet epoxy. On the burgundy job, we used a seed spreader because they did not want a heavy concentration of flake, and if you did want a heavy concentration, that spreader would never cut it because you'd have to be filling it way too often. On our gray office job, I don't remember how many pounds of flake we had here, but we wanted a much denser concentration. So we split the flake into buckets and walked around in spikes and basically bounced handfuls of flake off the ceiling. It's good to practice throwing flake on the bare sealed floor before this epoxy goes down, so you understand better what it takes to get a uniform flake distribution. If the floor is clean, you sweep up the flakes when you're done and you put them back in the bucket and you just reuse them. This floor got a clear coat over it afterwards, so with a black stripping pad, 17 or 18 inch, we put that under a drive pad on a slow speed, 175 RPM floor buffer, and we basically burnished the floor. It takes off any loose flakes, flakes that stood on end, flakes that fall and lay on top of one another. We sweep and vacuum that floor thoroughly when the buffing is done. This is the clear coat. This is a single component moisture cure urethane non-yellowing clear. We work from a roller pan here. We do not pour this material on the floor. 2 coats of this are going over the flake. These are all 18-inch rollers and a 24-inch squeegee, which was used to spread the epoxy. The roller is dipped into the liquid, and you roll it out to distribute the clear, and then you back roll in the opposite direction to even it out. Working with an 18-inch roller is very easy once you get the hang of it, and it covers a lot of ground fast. Coming down a hallway. This type of situation, you want to cut these edges in with a paintbrush first, and it's always good to tape firmly with duct tape a 4-inch paintbrush onto the end of just a plain wooden pole. Dip it, go across, and then come back in the other direction. First coat of clear dries overnight. You come right back in the next morning, as long as you could walk on it with clean shoes, and you lay the second coat right over it with no scuffing, buffing necessary. This was our office floors with some holographic flake and vinyl flakes in there.
Bada bing.